So, Luke the Notable just posted, well, not too long ago, just posted a video about Sprint, and how it can be tweaked and changed for the next Halo game. Now, I don't like Sprint myself, but like Luke, I don't see it going away. Now that it's here, it will be here to stay for pretty much every 343 developed Halo game until they decide to remake Halo 3, which I don't see them doing for a while, because let's be honest, the Master Chief Collection version of Halo 3 is about as good as we wanted Halo 3 to be. 1080p, 60 FPS, albeit the multiplayer didn't work, but that's just the MCC's fault. The campaign ran nicely, the multiplayer ran nicely when it worked. It was great. But all of the ideas he came up with, the idea of tweaking the radar and removing Spartan Charge, I am all for. I am the sort of person that believes that movement mechanics and combat mechanics shouldn't really be intertwined, which is why I'm a big advocate for removing Spartan Charge and Ground Pound, because at the moment it just means that if you jump or if you sprint into somebody, you have an advantage over them where you shouldn't have an advantage. The idea of jumping in a first-person shooter, at least an arena shooter, a classic one like Unreal Tournament, is that jumping should only be used if necessary. And the shooting mechanics are completely separate from the movement mechanics, making two things you have to learn in order to master the game. There's no Spartan Charge or Ground Pound or anything like that in the classic arena shooters, which Halo is trying so desperately to emulate to get that competitive feel. I mean, they called it the arena, for God's sakes. But the movement quirks and mechanics that were in those games, such as b-hopping, were difficult to master. They added a layer of skill, not just press the melee button and watch your opponent's shields go completely down. I mean, that's not skillful, that's just press a button. I mean, with the aim assist and aim magnetism that goes on in Halo 5, it's not that difficult to land a Spartan Charge. So long as you're aiming vaguely in their direction, you'll hit them. Ground Pound's a different story. It requires a bit of skill, a bit of timing, and there's a drop-off from where the actual reticle is. But even still, it's a rather cheap way of getting people out of situations that they should die in. If you're in a situation where you've jumped and somebody's shooting at you, you shouldn't be able to just ground pound your way out of that situation and do a heck ton of damage to the dude who's shooting at you. As far as arena shooters go, if you jump and get caught jumping, you're done. You're dead. Which is why a lot of arena shooters like Unreal Tournament had such pathetically tiny jumps. You could go a long distance in those jumps, but you'd never gain much height, which meant that you wouldn't spend too much time off the ground. As for what Luke said about the increased movement speed making the arena maps feel a lot better to play without sprint, that is exactly how most standard arena shooters do it. Your movement speed is insanely high to compensate for the fact that you have to get around the map quickly. It's fast paced, but still allows you to be ready for action at all times. This is one of the things I hated about sprint in Call of Duty, in Battlefield, in most shooters nowadays, is that in the striving for realism, sprinting makes sense, because on a battlefield, soldiers sprint around. It's the fastest way of moving outside of a vehicle. But if you're going for an arena shooter, and you're trying to mimic the arena shooter style, then I personally don't think sprinting has a place. I know that they will keep it in Halo because it's there and they want to be innovative, although Halo 5 didn't really have a great deal of innovations. It seems now that the innovative thing to do would be to go back to the classic gameplay, because there is a hole in the market there that classic Halo used to fill, and it's now not being filled by any modern shooters. I'm not going to say that 343 are just being, shit and adding in things, oh, players don't like, oh, you're blinded by nostalgia. But there is a legit gap in the market for somebody to come along and go, well, I'm going to make a real arena shooter, like what Doom tried, but in my opinion, Doom didn't do so well. The new Unreal Tournament that's coming out, if none of you have played it, you should play it. Download the Epic Games launcher, it's free. It's in super early access, but it's definitely worth playing. It shows exactly what an arena shooter should be. Obviously, Halo has its differences. It has a 2-weapon system, whereas Unreal Tournament doesn't. But there's a lot of similarities in what 343 tried to do, and what Unreal Tournament has been doing for the past couple of decades. You can see the fair starts, the weapon placement, the balance. There's even a lot of verticality in it. And I'm not a fan of verticality in Halo because the classic Halos didn't support that much and therefore didn't have them. And I am a classic Halo fanboy, and I know I'll get hate for that. But the fact that Halo maps are so vertical now is, I don't know where to look. Like, especially on a widescreen monitor, it's going to get a bit technical, but on a widescreen monitor, the FOV vertically is obviously smaller than the FOV horizontally, unless you were to play in portrait mode like some sort of crazy man. And that doesn't really allow for a great deal of peripheral vision vertically, especially in a game with such small FOV like Halo 5, which as far as I'm aware is around 65 to 70 FOV, which is tiny. I mean, I play shooters on 90 FOV for the most part, which is good because I sit at a desk. Obviously if you're sat on a couch away from the TV, then the lower FOV is good. But I don't understand why they push for verticality when it's difficult to see people that are above and below you. I'm sorry this has been kind of ranty, it's just I feel quite strongly about arena shooters and their mechanics, because arena shooters are what I've grown up with for a lot of it. I've played a lot of Quake, I've played a lot of Unreal Tournament, that sort of thing. And it seems to me that 343 are trying to emulate what these games did, but also keep in features from modern FPS games, and I personally don't think that meshes very well. Thank you very much for watching. My name's been Classy Ham. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like or a comment. If you thought I'm an idiot, tell me in the comments. And remember, stay classy.